All right, physics peeps. We're gonna just go over some quick electric circuit notes, things that you gotta know. So I'm gonna try to make this quick, but I would like you to write some of these things down. But I'll show you specifically what it is that you do need to know. Okay? So we started off with some of this stuff, and open circuit, closed circuit. One of the things that you do need to know off of this is that current always flows. From positive to negative. You need to know that. So when we draw that on a circuit, it usually goes from the positive end of the battery to the negative end of the battery in a closed circuit. That's kind of it. And so you need to know that. Other stuff. And when we're measuring electricity, we measure two main things, voltage and current. We're going to talk about both of them really quickly. And what you do need to have written down here is that when we measure voltage, we are measuring a difference in energy between two places. And it's measured in volts, and we are measuring currently direct voltage. Usually has a straight line above it on something like a multimeter or a voltmeter, things like that. And there are different types of voltage. One that you'll usually see on a multimeter or an ammeter that looks like this. We will talk about what that curly line is, or the curvy line is, and the difference between the straight line. For now though, voltage, it's a difference in energy. If you measure on a battery and you touch a voltmeter to both leads to the same side of the battery, it will not show up with a voltage. It'll say 0 over here on the multimeter. And because it will be measuring the same amount of energy on both sides. But if you touch them both to the negative side, same thing, you'll end up with 0 on the multimeter because you're measuring the same energy on both sides. When you touch both sides of the battery, then we end up with a voltage that shows up because there's a difference in energy from one side to the other. And that's where we get current to flow from the positive to the negative. You can think of it like going from high energy to low energy. That's kind of the gist of it. And many times when we do our labs too, you'll end up seeing things like they'll ask you to measure across something. When we say we're measuring across something, it's really just talking about the two spots on either side. So it's measuring voltage across a battery. It's the two sides of the battery. Across a light bulb means both sides of the light bulb. Okay, and that's kind of it. Sweet. So that's measuring out voltage. When we are using voltage, batteries provide voltage to a circuit. They provide energy, and that's the thing that you need to know. Batteries, they provide energy. And you can kind of think of it like a pump. They pump energy into the electrons and the particles inside the wires. And as that energy gets used up by something, those things will need to return and get pumped up again. It's like a water pump and a water tower. Water pumps, they pump water into a water tower and give it potential energy. And then that water is then able to flow out to our houses and give things like our showers and our sinks pressure. And then once it's cleaned and things like that at the waste management center, that water can be pumped back up into the water tower again. And it's this cycle. And same thing that a battery does. But the key thing is that more batteries, you have more energy. So if each battery is 1.5 volts, if you end up having 3 batteries together, they add up to 4.5 volts because it's 1.5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5. And so that's kind of how that works. If you wanted to, well, yeah, that's in general. That's kind of how batteries work. Yay. And make sure that you know that batteries, you can add them up. It's 2 1.5 volt batteries, that's 3 volts. Okay. That's what you need to know there. And then we'll get into conductors and insulators here in just a little bit. But other things that you need to know is with current. And current, you need to know this stuff. Current is that flow of electricity, but we measure the current using an ammeter or a multimeter. It's measured in amperes, and we call it amps for short. We abbreviate it with the letter A. Awesome. And usually we measure direct current, which has a straight line above it. There is another form that has a curvy line above it. We will talk about that later. And when we say amps, 1 amp is really like how fast that current is going. It's the amount of electricity that passes through the ammeter or the multimeter in 1 second. And then when we measure current, you have to measure it in an open circuit, which means you have to have a break in that circuit. Kind of like taking a switch, open it up, you touch it on both sides of those switches, or on both sides of the switch. And then it completes the circuit with the multimeter. That's what how we measure current. You need to know this. We measure current in an open circuit. Yeah. So that's that part with current. Last thing that you need to know is how to draw circuit diagrams. You did a little bit of this in lab, but circuit diagrams, we use symbols to represent a real life picture of the circuit, because you're like me, I'm not a great artist, so making simple symbols for different things makes it more understandable to other people. When we draw straight lines, it's really just wires. This symbol here is used for batteries, and that gets connected in line with those wires, so the wires kind of run into the battery. And a battery has one long line, one short line. It is different from this. Okay? Having both the same size is not a battery. And so you need to make sure that your battery has one long, one short side. And if you ever have two batteries, you have to have the positive end connecting to the negative end of that other battery. Otherwise, if you have it something like this, then it's like you have the positive end it's facing each other, and current flows from positive to negative, not positive to positive. So just be aware of that kind of stuff. Drawing light bulbs, it almost looks like a light bulb, but it doesn't have to be like a detailed picture. Like we're not drawing out a light bulb and like those little things down here and then this stuff. And it's really just a couple curvy lines and then a circle around it. A resistor has this zigzag, and a switch has two dots and then a line between them. And a switch can be drawn either open or closed. It does not matter which one that you have. Okay? It's just a way that we represent that switch. But this resistor, we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. It's really just something that causes energy to be used in a circuit, or it resists current in the circuit. You'll find out more. And besides that, though, that's really all that you need to know about circuit diagrams. You'll be drawing circuit diagrams here in a little bit. But thanks for following along with that. You guys were awesome. The next part of your assignment is really just learning about resistance and something called Ohm's law. I want you to follow along with that, and then there's some problems that you try out. And good luck with that. Feel free to ask your teacher if you have questions. Have a great day.